Hey everybody, Glenn from Third Millennium, question and answer time again. Got a good question today. Shireen, question, will the M200 speakers fit or replace the rear speakers in my third generation Miata above the compartment where the gas latch is? Thanks for that question, Shireen. The answer is no, they will not. The M200s are specifically for the second generation wind blockers, 1999 to 2005. We don't actually have a speaker for the third generation rear speakers in the Miata. And I'll take a minute or two here to tell you why that is and then how we would suggest that you guys deal with it. For those of you that don't know, there are a couple of speakers between the seats, right behind the plastic, above the gas latch little compartment there to pull down. And they don't sound very good. People are always asking about how they can replace those and so forth. We looked into that, and it's unfortunate. What Mazda does is, if you get back into there, you will find this assembly. This is actually screwed to the metal in the back, and it has two full-range drivers in it, which Mazda, as they always do, runs them as tweeters. And whether you have the Bose system or the non-Bose system, actually these speakers are all made by Bose, whether they're Bose or non-Bose, and they're normal 4-ohm speakers. The issue is that they are crossed over at quite a high frequency, so they just function as tweeters, which is why you don't get much audio out of them at all. And they are, if you'll notice, they're unbaffled, which means there is no acoustic isolation between the two speakers, which, if you had seen some of our other videos and question and answer, I've explained that as you try to reproduce low frequencies, which is going to what would make this sound better, is if you could produce low frequencies, it's necessary that this be acoustically isolated so that you don't get sound waves traveling from this one to the other, because that causes weird cancellation and reinforcement effects at different frequencies. To further complicate it, in the Bose systems, these are actually driven as a single channel, not as a stereo channel, whereas in the non-Bose they're actually a left and a right, and I believe they have them reversed, so that as you sit with this thing, I'm saving the passenger seat here. If I sit here, I'm getting this is left and this is right, so that theoretically, to your ear, you're getting some sort of a fill, some sort of help with the road noise is ultimately what it's all for. The reality is, these don't sound very good at all. So that was actually early on our list with the third generation cars to come up with a replacement. We ran into, and let me start off by saying we did develop a really nice replacement system for it. Two problems that we ran into. Because of the frame that they have and the way this was set up, we had to actually make a complete sub-enclosure that a couple of speakers could go into, which would provide the acoustic isolation so that we could actually get proper operation, and we could extend the frequency from, I think the crossover on those is around 4,000 cycles, 4,000 hertz. So we could extend it from there down to a couple of hundred hertz. So you'd actually get some vocals and some instrumentation, so it would really sound good. Similar to what we've done with our M200s on the second generation, where they're mounted in the wind blockers, in the wind blocker. Unfortunately, the cost to make this enclosure, the crossover, and the speakers is quite high. It's just the reality of the volume that we would be able to sell them in. We were actually going to create the box as a extrusion out of ABS, and the cost of molds and so forth is quite expensive. So we weren't really sure about, whether or not we'd be selling those at a price point that would make sense for us, but also would be affordable for people to purchase. But the thing that really was the problem was we try to sell all of our products with instructions and configured in such a way that really just about anybody can install them and be successful. That's why we put the correct harnesses on to plug right into the vehicle harness. Make sure that the screw holes line up, those types of things. Unfortunately, in the third generation car, it is extremely difficult to get back to those speakers. You literally, properly doing it, you have to take the seats out, you got to take the entire rear and side, lower side panels out of the back of the car to get back there. It is not a trivial. Anybody that's replaced the top on the third generation car where you have to take all that stuff out, ask them and they will tell you that pretty much every single thing in the back of the car gets pulled out to get back to that spot. And we basically have concluded that most of the customers that we're trying to sell to would not be comfortable doing that job. So we've put that on a back burner. We haven't given up on the idea entirely, so we're still trying to think about ways to get the product cost down that would still allow people that were more comfortable with that level of technical work do it, but we haven't come up with anything yet. So unfortunately, the answer to the question is no. The M200s will not mount back there. It's actually a difficult spot too because it's quite shallow. So you don't have much depth for the speaker, for the magnet assembly on the speakers. So it would need to be a pretty special speaker that would mount in there anyway. And then you also have to deal with the Bose single channel output versus the non-Bose. They're going to sound substantially different simply because of the signal processing that Bose is doing. So that is yet another twist that's in it as well. So what do we suggest? Well, we suggest go ahead, put our M800 speakers into the doors, disconnect the stock tweeters that are in the doors. They're not very good tweeters anyway. Our M800s have a superior tweeter. And balance out the system so that 98% of your audio is coming from the door speakers. And all you're picking up from those stock speakers that are between the seats is just a little bit to help with the wind and the road noise. And just leave it at that. And it's unfortunate that couldn't do a little bit more with that to improve it. Still, the best wind and road noise solution for any of the Miatas is the first generation Miata, where the headrest speakers are in the seats. Even the fourth generation that now has the headrest speakers, they're just little tiny 1-inch tweeters. They don't sound, I mean, they produce some audio, but they give you more of a headache than actually produce anything that's useful. The first generation really had the premier solution. It was more expensive to design all that in the seats, which is probably why it got dropped for the second generation onward. But that is the best solution. So you guys that have the first generation cars, you are fortunate again in many ways. You have one of the lightest cars, and you have one of the ones that really has the capability for the nicest audio setup. Anyway, hope this answers the question. If you're not already a subscriber, appreciate it if you would go ahead and click to subscribe and click that bell that's down there too. Yeah, you'll get a notice we release new videos, which we try to get out not only on installing all of our products, but some Miata audio in general, and question and answer like this one. So thanks very much again, and I will see you on the next one.